Good afternoon, everyone. I'm very pleased to be here today for this webinar in partnership with ONTABA and Autism Ontario on fostering safe social connection during COVID-19 pandemic. Welcome and thank you for joining us. I'm Carly Eby. I'm a board certified behavior analyst and the founding director of the Autism Center of Toronto, and I serve on the ONTABA Board of Directors. I'm very pleased to be joined today by Miko Van Spake. Miko will have a chance a little later to introduce himself, and thank you very much for joining me today, Miko. If you have any questions during this webinar, you can post them below, and we'll get back to you with answers. In our brief 30-minute time here, we will be discussing how to plan and execute remote social opportunities for children as well as people of all ages. We'll discuss some challenges associated with the remote format and some strategies for success. Finally, we'll provide an overview of considerations for staying safe while interacting online. Whether for a child or adult, social connection is important. For people with autism or other diagnoses, social connection can be more challenging and can require support from others. As we're well aware, the COVID-19 pandemic has created all sorts of complications for our daily routines and in the ways that we interact with others. I'd like to mention that this webinar is not designed to cover COVID-related mental health concerns. However, if anyone listening to this webinar is struggling with their mental health or supporting someone else who is, we've included some crisis support resources in the resource list or handout section. So please take a look if that's something that you're looking for. I'm going to talk a little bit first about supporting social contact for young children. For many kids, playdates were an important fixture before COVID-19. For some, playdates were a part of the child's learning plan. Playdates can still be a positive source of social connection and social skill development. In fact, in many ways, we can continue to facilitate playdates with some simple yet evidence-based strategies. And for some kids, remote playdates are turning out to have some benefits, like feeling more relaxed in their home or having their parent or caregiver nearby to support them. As it turns out, we can apply what we already know from research on facilitating playdates effectively for children with autism to our current context of being physically distanced and needing to connect over video conferencing tools. There are 5 well-established steps to facilitating guided playdates. What I've found is that we can still follow these steps to facilitate guided playdates using the video chat format, and it can be quite successful. Of course, there are certainly some important considerations specific to our current COVID-19 context, and I'll highlight some of these in the next slide. On the left side of this table, you'll see the 5 steps to guided playdates. On the right side, I've listed some things to consider when facilitating playdates in the video chat format. For step 1, pick a playmate. Try to think beyond your typical social circle. Before COVID, you might have had limited options for suitable playmates. Now you can plan playdates with relatives or friends that live farther away. Many of your friends and family might be quite happy to have scheduled activities for their children. It's important still to consider age, developmental level, and common interests to set your child up for success. For step 2, plan an activity. It's a good idea to pick an activity or two in advance that's somewhat structured, like a particular toy set, and both children should have interest in the activities. The activities should fit into about 30 minutes of play and possibly could require turn-taking or some sort of cooperative arrangement. Some examples of things that I have found that have worked well in this format have been, it requires some pre-thought and pre-planning, but something like, printing coloring pages, and both children would have the same coloring pages or similar, maybe from a similar movie, and that could facilitate some conversation perhaps. Or Play-Doh can work really well, and there can be particular Play-Doh sets, like Play-Doh with ice cream. And so both kids would have the same Play-Doh set, and so they could both be building ice cream cones or popsicles with their Play-Doh. Or if both kids have the same picnic basket, they can both have the same materials on either side of the screen, and that can be really helpful for facilitating. For kids with more intermediate or advanced conversation skills, anything like dolls or action figures that encourage pretend play can also be quite effective. For step 3, prepare your child. Talk to your child about who they're going to be seeing on the screen, what they're going to be playing with, and perhaps where it will be taking place, at the kitchen, in the living room, in the bedroom, as well as where their playmate will be calling from. You may want to play in advance with some of the toys and practice by modeling some play statements or play actions that the child can use during the play date. For step 4, promote interaction. Your child may need you to clarify questions that the other child asks on the other end, or to model some play statements during the play date. This is where the parent or therapist can really become a facilitator by encouraging social interaction, but trying not to come in between natural play between the children. Fade back as much as possible and provide support when needed. And don't be concerned if there are periods of silence. Depending on the children, their age, their developmental level, parallel play may be perfectly appropriate in that case. So you can allow those to happen as well. For step 5, review the play date. Ask yourself, and if appropriate, your child, what went well and what didn't, and use that information for planning the next one. You might find that your child was very interested in the toys you brought out for the play date. Maybe you bought them, particularly for it, and they were novel or new, and that they were very into the toys instead of being interactive with the other child. So you might use that information so that next time picking toys or activities that will encourage a little more interaction. For some kids, it could be very helpful to have something to interact with on the screen. So books, videos, games that both children can see on their screen at the same time and interact with. There are some apps where both participants can read a book together and also see each other. There's also ways to watch shows or movies together, as well as some other user-friendly apps that young children may enjoy with parent supervision. So moving along to some considerations and strategies for people of all ages when navigating social interaction in the COVID-19 context. We know that autistic teens and adults may be at higher risk for loneliness and social isolation, and that could be further exacerbated by quarantine conditions. Caregivers may want to help by ensuring that their family member is continuing to have social contact with family, friends, or other people who were typically in their lives. For instance, the caregiver may want to help by scheduling the calls or scheduling the meetups. In some cases, individuals may need some additional instruction or support on the skills that are needed to use the technology, and we'll describe that a little bit in more detail later. So at this point, I'd like to invite Miko Van Speyk to join me to talk about some of his experiences with staying socially connected during COVID-19. Hi, Miko, are you there?
Yep, I'm here.
Hi, Miko. Thanks for joining me today.
No worries. Thanks for having me.
So could you introduce yourself for the audience, please?
Sure. So my name is Miko Van Speyk. I'm 25 years old. I'm an autism self-advocate. I'm on the board of directors for the Ontario Autism Coalition. We're a nonprofit organization that fights for needs-based therapy and does a whole lot of work with rallies and online since COVID. But before COVID, we would do at least once a year a rally at Queen's Park on the front lawn.
Great. So Miko, I had a few questions up on the screen for you, but I was wondering if you could talk about, from your perspective, how your social life sort of was before COVID. What were you doing, in your regular social life before COVID?
Well, I try and really have my social interactions on weekends and on Friday nights, because as we all know, the work week doesn't stop just because you want to socialize. So I would try and find work, and then on weekends I'd try and go and hang out with my friends, whether it be going to the weight room or going for a swim, going to a bar, going for hikes, having bonfires in the summer, or in the winter just like going to a friend's house and playing video games.
Yeah. Great. So a lot of in-person physical interaction with your friends.
Yeah. And that was prior to COVID. Since COVID, I've switched to a lot of different apps for video chatting, whether it be Facebook, Instagram, WhatsApp, even the Zoom video app, and, being able to interact with my friends over any form of video chat and being able to play games. Because I'm older than, 19, we play games kind of related to drinking and to more adult party games. I had my 25th birthday in quarantine, and so me and 100 of my friends got together over Zoom, and we just had a big party for myself since it was my 25th.
That's awesome. Well, happy birthday.
Thank you.
Great. Okay, so you've talked a little bit about how the COVID restrictions have changed, the way that you've interacted, and obviously you're doing a lot more over social media and internet. Have you experienced any challenges with that, or anything that that you've encountered?
Not so much with the social interaction, but I do find myself with my anxiety a lot higher than it was prior to COVID, because, everything's so unknown. We don't know when the world is going to start back up again, even though we're slowly starting to, but we don't know when everything's going to be fully kind of the new normal in terms of fully reopening and how life is going to look, going from here on.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you have any tips then for other people listening for how you manage some of that?
If I'm having anxiety, I try and listen to music or watch YouTube or TV. I find that helps with my anxiety. Also for the very little ones who are just starting to be able to communicate, who might not be toilet trained, I figure that could be a challenge for video chatting, because the parent may need to pause the video chat to change their kid if their kid has an accident, in terms of kids who are not toilet trained.
Yeah, absolutely. That's great. Thank you. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Just, thank you for giving me this opportunity, and really do appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being here. And Miko's going to stay here, and he's also available to answer questions for anybody that wants to post questions for Miko. Great, thanks, Miko. So moving on to, and sort of related to some of the things that we were talking about with Miko, we're fortunate that there are so many free apps that allow us to connect socially. And, just one note of caution is that privacy can be a concern with online platforms, and people should be aware of the risks associated with any platform that they're using. But we are fortunate that these are all out there for us at this time. I'm not sure we all knew how valuable they might have become. In addition to privacy issues, and we'll talk a little bit about safety tips later, there are some challenges associated with interacting over video chat that we wanted to touch on here, like technical difficulties that are very common, such as internet delays or crashes. There are certain rules of behavior or etiquette that may not come naturally to everybody, like how to know when to talk, or people might be talking over each other on the call that we're needing to adjust to in these new experiences. And these experiences could be frustrating, annoying, could cause anger for you or for other people that you're chatting with. And it's important to remember that we are all experiencing similar challenges as we learn this new technology. So we need to be patient with ourselves when we do encounter some of these challenges. It could be helpful to set some ground rules, like turning off your microphone when others are speaking, raising your hand to speak, or indicating when you're done speaking and when you're passing on to the next person. For some people, it could be helpful to have the steps broken down, and they may benefit from some skills training in participating with video chat or video calls. Task analysis is a simple and effective way to break down a complex task into smaller steps and then teach step by step. It's a common approach for daily living skills like making a meal, getting dressed, using public transportation, really any skill in which someone wants to become more independent. So here's an example of how task analysis can be used to teach calling on FaceTime. To make a task analysis, really you just want to think of how to complete the task or observe someone else completing the task and write those down in sequence. Ask somebody else to complete the task in the way that you've written it, to ensure that it makes logical sense. When you teach, set up the opportunities to practice the skill sort of before the skill is actually needed to be used. So set up some practice runs. Provide help or prompts if needed. The reinforcement often is naturally occurring in a chain like this, in a chain of behavior like this. In this case, it's seeing the person on the other end of the screen when you've had a successful FaceTime call. But consider the individual's reinforcers, which could be unique. And stage your support as your learner gains more independence. One of the unexpected positives from COVID-19 has been the abundance of online social opportunities. We're seeing coffee hours, Friday night socials, sing-alongs, religious services, as well as classes and workshops. It can be a little overwhelming to sort through everything, but you may want to become familiar with what is available and then pick a few to try that align with your interests. This list is not exhaustive, but we have listed a few sources of online social meetups and events. And this is available to you in the handout section on your screen. While a full review of internet safety is not possible within this time frame, I wanted to touch on some of the most highly recommended do's and don'ts. For a more in-depth information on online safety, I do recommend mediasmarts.ca. So first, don't use social media when you're feeling stressed or upset. It's better to take a break and come back when you're feeling calm. Do keep personal information private. Do create non-identifying screen names so you can't be looked up. Do create private groups for you and your friends to chat or virtually hang out, and don't let unknown users in. If you feel uncomfortable with any sort of online interaction, exit the chat and tell somebody. For caregivers of adolescents and teens or younger younger children, MediaSmarts has some great tips for creating safe online behavior in your household. Now, I'm not an expert in online safety. However, as a parent of a preteen, I find these particularly helpful for my household. Keep devices and online activities in common family areas. Keep your teen's bedroom tech-free at night. Try to know about the websites that your adolescent or teen is frequenting. As a family, have open communication about your expectations. Try to model the safe online behavior that you're teaching to your kids. When conflicts arise, help by teaching simple conflict resolution strategies, and talk explicitly about the risks and dangers of online activities. For many more useful tips on online safety, as I mentioned, I recommend mediasmarts.ca, and they do have tips that are specific to different ages and age categories as young as 2 to 4. This concludes our webinar. We hope that we've provided you with some useful strategies for remaining socially connected during the COVID-19 pandemic. I'd like to especially thank Nico for joining me today and providing his valuable insight and experience. Thank you and have a great day.